Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and we have a very busy weekend of motorsport to look back on. Not only did we have the return of Formula 1 from Zandvoort in the Netherlands, which I have already covered in this video, but we had action all over the world, some of it very long. That includes IndyCar and Indy NXT from Portland, IMSA from Virginia, NASCAR from Daytona, Super Formula from Motegi, European Le Mans from Spa-Francorchamps, F1 Academy also from Zandvoort, British Touring Cars from Donington Park, and Euro 4 from Mugello, which has only just got underway. So with all that to get through, as well as my predictions from Friday's video, let's delay no longer and jump into the video.
Now we have the final road race of the year at Portland, and the Spaniard has to do well here. He has said he has a disadvantage on the ovals and he can't rely on luck to carry him through every race. A podium for Palau then, but who is going to win? Well, I think this will go to Marcus Ericsson. It has been a terrible year for the Swede. His first year with Andretti has only netted him one podium at Detroit. He is nowhere near the title challenging places and will be lucky to finish in the top 10. A win in Portland will help him on his way, beating Joseph Newgarden to the win as the double Indy 500 winner looks to mount a late challenge for the championship. He does have a lot of catching up to do, but as previously mentioned, he is a god on the oval.
IndyCar was the big race of the weekend from Portland. Not many races left and the championship could still be up for grabs, but someone needed to stop Alex Palau. Scott Dixon was one of his main contenders and his race didn't last 2 laps. Will Power led the early stages but had to hold a feisty Alex Palau behind. That was the status quo for the entire race. Elsewhere, Romain Grosjean spun on his own and in recovering was turned around again by Christian Rasmussen after basically driving right in front of him. Grosjean's stock has significantly fallen in just a few years of IndyCar. Will Power won, and I have to say, this was an exceptionally dull IndyCar race, which feels like sacrilege if I'm honest. Alex Palau was second and basically guaranteed the title. There are still questions over seats for next year, with Will Power apparently being possibly for the chop. Only a few races left, and they are all ovals. Woohoo!
Indy NXT and Lewis Foster has all but wrapped up the title already, just 3 races left to go, and maybe, just maybe, Lewis Foster will take his foot off the gas, so to speak. I think Jamie Chadwick will bounce back from her gateway disappointment and take the win, ahead of Callum Hedges and Miles Rowe. The top 3 of the championship will be spread out around the top 10.
Indy NXT was also in action in Portland and we got a bit of a chaotic start. Salvador de Alba, the big loser in this situation. Louis Foster only needed to finish as well as possible and may have been playing it safe at the start when Jacob Abel was able to get past and into the lead. All Foster had to do was hold on to him anyway. This race was all about the battle at the front between these two, and to be honest, not a lot happened in the midfield anyway. Ricardo Escotto took out James Rowe Jr. and brought out a safety car which bunched everyone back up, but the gaps were soon reformed and it went back to Jacob Abel versus Lewis Foster. Abel won and kept his slim title hopes alive, but Foster hasn't finished outside of the top 2 since race 3. This was number 12 if you don't remember. He is going to be almost impossible to stop with 2 oval races left to finish the year.
IMSA and Virginia, just the GTs in action here. I don't have a clue here, so I'm picking at random. Ben Barnicoat and Jack Hawksworth in the Vassar Sullivan Lexus in the GTD Pro class, and Robbie Foley and Patrick Gallagher in the Turner Motorsport BMW. They won at the last round. If they do it again, then they'll take the title fight to the final 2 rounds.
IMSA from Virginia, and it was just the GT cars in action at Virginia. Not a very exciting race, and I honestly don't get the point of having different races for the various classes. Have a set calendar of rounds of every class. America has plenty of GT standalone series already, not to mention all the GT racing going on around the world. IMSA to have separate races just for the GTs is kind of pointless, and this race wasn't anything special. A few incidents in the just over 2.5 hours. Both Corvettes ran into mechanical trouble, so this can be written off as a dreadful weekend for them, but their retirement was nowhere near as dramatic as the Inception McLaren, which blew its load with half hour to go. Parker Thompson went off on the last lap, but the number 12 Lexus wasn't anywhere important. Brian Sellers and Madison Snow won the GTD Pro class in their BMW, and Michael Grenier and Kenton Koch won in GTD. Not really worth watching, skip this one folks.
It hardly matters who wins at this point, but let's go for someone who hasn't taken a win in 2024. Ty Gibbs has been knocking on the door all year. Let's say he finally secures a playoff spot at the Coke Zero Sugar 400.
NASCAR next, and I often say this is one of the most tedious series in the world to watch. With its 700 ovals a year, wreck-happy stop-start racing, and usually the odd punch thrown for good measure. So when I say the Daytona race was absolutely mental and one of the best races of the weekend, I mean it was a really fun NASCAR race to watch, and how much of a rarity it is for me to say that. First stage wasn't anything to write home about. It all started with Daniel Suarez bursting into flames. That was followed by a mass crash that took out more than half the field, and good luck keeping track of what was going on in this race. Shane Van Gisbergen was taking part in this one, and was even running near the top 10 when his engine blew, with a massive smokescreen sent out behind him. It's a wonder this didn't turn into a big crash. 10 laps left and we got the second big crash of the race. Michael McDowell getting launched into the air off the front of Joey Logano's car, and that was another handful of cars out. And then Josh Berry got turned upside down and inside out. He was fine, by the way. Everyone was fine. But this was another big crash, and out was a driver who had been around the top places the entire race. We had 3 laps of overtime with only about half a field still competing. Looked like Kyle Busch was going to take his first win of 2024, his first at Daytona for 16 years. But he was pipped on the line by young Harrison Burton, son of Jeff Burton and nephew of Ward Burton. The Burton racing family has a new winner. And that means with only one non-playoff race to go, Kyle Busch still isn't yet in. There's a few surprisingly winless drivers going into the final race, and it'll be interesting to see how things play out at Darlington.
And Tomoki Najiri is the driver to beat. I think we'll see a first win for Ayumu Iwasa, but it might be too late for him to put himself in the championship fight. It'll be interesting to see how Nick DeVries does on his Super Formula debut. I think he could be a top 5 driver here, doing better than Teo Pucher did in the Impul car.
Super Formula was at Motegi, and we had a debut in the Team Impul car for Dutch Formula E champion and sadly F1 flop Nick DeVries. How would he get on in the car Teo Pucher really struggled with earlier in the year? Well, not really great, but he did okay. He started down in 18th, and it didn't get much better than that. Kenta Yamashita led the first half of the race, holding off of a Dandelion Racing pair. The pit stop window was suddenly opened up on lap 17 when the Ing of Senna Sakaguchi pulled to the side of the road, but the safety car did not come out and only Nick DeVries pitted. At this point, he was up to 14th. Kakanushin Ota took the lead from Yamashita, who dropped to 4th, but the Kondo driver had the fresher tyres. He didn't pose a threat, but we got a great battle for the lead between the two Dandelion drivers for the last few laps. Unbelievably, Ota spun out on the penultimate lap, leaving Tadasuke Makino to take the win. Makino is just 5 points behind Tomoki Najiri, and that looks like the title fight with 4 races left. Sho Suboi is 15 points further behind. This was not an amazing race, but the good moments make it worth a watch.
European Le Mans at Spa, 3 classes to choose winners for, and I think the LMP2 win will go to the number 25 Alcarv Pro car. Alex Lynn and Ollie Caldwell are too talented not to take a win in 2024, and Matthias Kaiser ain't half bad himself. In LMP3, let's go for the all-French Ultimate outfit, Jean-Baptiste Lehay, Mathieu Lehay and Luis Rossi at the wheel. And in the GT class, the Racing Spirit of Le Mans, Aston Martin of Derek De Boer, Valentin Hasclot and Casper Stevenson.
European Le Mans from Spa-Francorchamps and a 4 hours of racing. Only took 15 minutes to get our first safety car, with the JMW Ferrari heavily damaged after contact with Matthias Kaiser in the Algarve car. Nat, that was my pick to win, so I am definitely cursed. It was lucky there were 6 Ferraris in the field, because another couple were taken out by Sarah Bovey in this spin, and yes, these cars are going backwards. 3 more GT cars in trouble and another yellow flag. After a delay and a good old-fashioned queue to get into the pit lane, we got underway with 3 hours left to play and about 6 untroubled GT cars. And after a very long safety car, we had a spin for the De Quoin team after contact before the race had even restarted. And then the United Autosports car also spun. And Sarah Bovey continued her rampage by colliding with her teammates, taking them both out of the race. Was everybody drunk? It feels like everyone in Belgium was drunk. Other cars went off as well, and so we got a 3rd safety car. This was madness. If you got rid of the safety cars, this race was 5 minutes long. We still weren't halfway through this race. Although the race did calm down in the second half, but I had no idea what was going on at this point. All the strategies were mixed up and I was not sure who had the advantage. It was AO who won, Louis Delatraz, Robert Kubica and Johnny Edgar being where they should be, with Euro International winning LMP3 and Kessel Racing winning in GT. It was a fun race, but there were far too many stoppages and the first 2 hours were a little bit too mad for my liking. Only 2 rounds left, AO lead, but it's very close, especially between the top 4. All the classes are still close, so expect more chaos at Mugello in a month's time.
Abby Pulling is dominating this series in 2024. She hasn't finished outside the top 2, and I think that will continue at Zandvoort. A win for Abby Pulling, and I'm going to presume Dorian Pan is full fit and ready to go. She'll take a win and the other second place. Maya Woog will be the best of the rest, with Chloe Chambers fighting with Emily De Huss and Nerea Marti.
F1 Academy is back on our screens for the first time in a couple of months, and they were racing at a very wet and windy Zandvoort. Unsurprisingly, at this point, Abby Pulling was on pole ahead of Dorian Pan, but then race 1 was delayed because of the weather. That took place on Sunday morning instead, and I haven't seen any footage of it. Abby Pulling won. Dorian Pan was on pole for race 2. She led the entire way with ease ahead of Maya Woog and Abby Pulling. The interesting battle was behind, with wildcard Nina Gaidman getting up to 4th after a long battle with Aurelia Nobles. The fact she was up in 4th is a really fantastic performance, but she was given a 10-second penalty that dropped her down to 10th. But it was more about the performance anyway. Dorian Pan took her first win since the start of the year. It was a really boring race with very little overtaking and only the odd on-track battle. Abby Pulling still leads the championship.
I'm still shocked we haven't seen more Ash Sutton wins, so I'll give one to him, and one for Jake Hill, with the third win of the day going to Josh Cook. And I really do hope the top 6 can stick close to each other in the points, so we can have a thrilling climax to the 2024 championship.
British touring cars from the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, and as the weekend began, we had 9 races left to sort out the championship. It was pretty close between the top 3, with another 3 still able to force their way into the championship picture. Tom Ingram was the championship leader, but he got turned around by Mikey Doble in a moment anyone watching saw coming a mile off. Andrew Watson's terrible season with Toyota continues as he ended race 1 in the gravel and brought out the safety car. Dan Rowbottom also got some damage from somewhere, so race 1 was taking some casualties. Colin Turkington comfortably took the first win of the day from Ash Sutton. Sutton took the lead at the start of race 2, with Hill and Ingram fighting hard for third. BMW really seemed to struggle to warm their tyres at the start of this race, whilst it was Dan Camish who got turned around at the start of this time, and he dropped to the back as his title hopes fade away in front of him. We had a great fight between Sutton and Ingram, but the Hyundai suddenly slowed and was out. Another hit to Ingram's title hopes, and a massive boon for Ash Sutton, who took the win ahead of the BMWs. Race 3 was absolutely insane. Ash Sutton retired this time with damage, and then Colin Turkington was spun round at the hairpin, as Tom Ingram got inside the top 10 on lap 3. He kept climbing through the field, and by the time we got a second safety car for the stranded Aidan Moffat, Ingram was 4th, and with only a few laps left, it had started raining. Dan Camish took his first win of the year, but it was Tom Ingram who finished 2nd, having climbed 17 places. That really was the driver of the day. Colin Turkington recovered to 7th, so it was overall a good weekend for him and Jake Hill, mostly through consistency, and even Josh Cook was inside the top 4 in all 3 races. The top 6 are all still contenders. Colin Turkington has closed right in on Ash Sutton, so it's still all to play for with 6 races left. Cook and Camish are hanging on for dear life, and will need 6 of their best ever races to be in with a chance. And Dan Zelos, on his debut weekend, did okay. He finished all 3 races in the points, and is already ahead of Nick Halstead in the championship.
Finally, I'm going to throw in some predictions for Euro 4, which starts this weekend. All of these are young drivers, unproven, and they mostly race at Formula 4 level, and frankly, anything can happen. Let's say a winner piece for Freddie Slater, Jack Beaton and David Larini, son of former Formula 1 driver Nicola Larini.
Finally, let's talk about the just starting Euro 4 series. This kind of slightly above Formula 4 level series was kicking off at Mugello. Some good battling in this one, and a real standout was Indian driver Akshay Bora. Took the first win of the day without really being challenged. Bora had a bad start to race 2 and dropped to 4th. Meanwhile, Mercedes hopeful Alex Powell was having a rotten first weekend, a disaster in this very short championship only held over 3 weekends. Hiyu Yamakoshi took the win in race 2, and the lack of crashes is a real surprise to me when these drivers are so young. They showed a lot more intelligence, restraint and patience than some of their older counterparts this weekend. That did change somewhat in race 3, which is usually the case in the final race of the day. Lynn Herdinius got taken out by teammate Gustav Johnson just as the safety car came out, which will please the stewards, I'm sure. Alves Rodella was also taken out, so not a great race for Van Amersfoort. Akshay Bora took his second win of the weekend and leads after 1 round. So that was all the action from the past weekend. Picking a race of the weekend is difficult because a lot of it was kind of meh. Not terrible, just not overly interesting. Even IndyCar was a disappointment. I did enjoy NASCAR this week, but I have to say my race of the weekend is the 3rd BTCC race at Donington Park. with its drama and Tom Ingram climbing through the field. Let me know your race of the weekend in the comments below. Next weekend we have plenty more motorsport, including the Italian Grand Prix, Formula 2 and the final races of the Formula 3 Championship, also from Monza, the penultimate races in IndyCar and Indy NXT from Milwaukee, the final race before the playoffs in NASCAR at Darlington, Formula A Regional America from Bowmanville, Super GT from Suzuka with the 350km race, and the World Endurance with the Lone Star Le Mans race in Texas. That's a lot of racing and some very long races in there as well. So make sure you subscribe to the channel for more motorsport, including predictions on Friday. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching and have a good one.